I think beyond an equal in this one. I mean, he makes Frodo look like a fool, like in this one. I mean, because like you think you're so slick, but you know.
Oh, I had to laugh when he like mocked him. He's like, "You think you're so clever, but we've heard you muttering, all melodramatic. Will I ever see this valley again? I wonder." Like Mary's like,
Like, what are you talking about? Like, of course I know what you're doing.
yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to check in with you.
Yeah.
So, the Greek Freak's back.
Yes.
It's been a couple episodes since you've joined us.
Couple chapters, yeah.
Yeah. So, where are you emotionally with the story? We just got through, before we start this chapter, we just had a shortcut to mushrooms. We had Farmer Maggot.
Yep.
And we just crossed Buckleberry Ferry.
Buckleberry Ferry.
And we're on the other side.
Yep.
That's
we're
where the
at,
chapter starts.
Hollow, right?
Not yet. We're in Buckland.
We're talking about chapter 5? Or we're talking about...
No, now we're in chapter 5.
Yeah,
So we have basically two parts of chapter 5. There's the brief...
Oh, right, yeah.
The brief encounter with Mary, and then they have the dinner, and then there's the long form
and the
discussion.
Revelation. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's definitely a lull in the story for me, which is good, you know, like threat level minimum, like so. So I mean emotionally, like I'm good. Like, you know, it's like a chapter where you can kind of breathe a little bit.
Yes.
I think this chapter is very much pertaining to hobbits. You know what I mean? It's, you know, I know there's its own little thing like pertaining to hobbits, but this is all hobbit talk, you know, which is cool. And you kind of see how ridiculous they could be a little bit, you know, which is funny. But yeah, I'm emotionally in a safe place, I think, so far in the story.
Yeah, this is one of those breaks, right? You have this rising action in Tolkien's work. They're being chased by the Black Riders. It's terrifying. Then even as they cross the river and look back, they see what they just missed. Mm-hmm. The terror that they just missed in that Black Rider. Yeah. He's like snuffling on the
crawling around again.
Yeah, crawling around. And going back and forth, swaying back and forth. Yeah. And then it's interesting, in the books they crawl.
Right.
You don't see him crawl in the films, really.
You don't really see a crawl. You see him kind of like lurching around. They kind of, but no actual physical crawling, which is because I think we talked about last time, which is terrifying. But yeah, I mean I think for me, like, you know, it's not going to be like a scary chapter because, like, you know, like Tolkien immediately goes into like backstory. You know, he starts talking about like Brandy Hall and everything like this. And like he takes the time to like, kind of be like, well, let's go back for, you know, a little bit. And
do you like that lore? Or are you bored?
I mean, I read it twice just so I can, you know, like, just so I can understand it a little bit. Like, I mean, I guess I didn't care, but it is interesting that we're like that. So was it Brandy Hall? Brandy Hall is part of Buckland. So Buckland was essentially its own country. You were saying
colony.
Yeah, it's a colony. He called it its own country, then its own colony as well, which is fascinating. Which is kind of like there were outsiders, but well, they consider each other outsiders, but he's like, they're basically the same, right? And he came from the Shire and settled. Was it Gordon?
Oh, no. Now you got
the founder of.
Now you got me lore mastering. It was the Took, wasn't it? The Great Took.
So.
It was something Brandy. He changed his name to.
He changed it Brandy Book. Yeah. It was Gordon something, which from we said I forget. So it seemed like he came from the Shire and kind of, you know, developed this area into his own thing, and he's still considered an outsider.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, it's cool that they're the only ones that like boats and like can actually, some of them can swim.
Hobbits have short memories.
What's that?
The Hobbits have short memories in terms of their own history. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Must be all that long bottom leaf.
But I mean, as far as like the Lord of the Rings lore, I mean, I can, you know,
take it or leave it.
Yeah, for that. Yeah, in regards to that, but I mean, it was all right.
Yeah. Well, I think it paints a picture. I think it creates a context. He's the master of world building. So even though that part of the text is boring, I think the overall narrative loses something without it.
Right.
Just like the song. You know, if you've read through the book before, I mean, you don't like I find myself kind of skipping past all the songs and the poetry, but the first time through they do color the world.
And there's like you said, there's a purpose. There's like the brushstrokes to his world, which And like I agree, you know.
Brushstrokes?
Brush strokes.
Oh, brush.
Yeah, you know, it's brush strokes.
Swimming across the brandy wine with the brushstroke.
You know, you get an idea of, you know, the world they're in, you know, the region they're in. So it's, you know, I can appreciate that. Yeah. So it's, you know, he does a insane job of like just like detailing everything.
Yes.
Just by using, you know, like words. You know, it's, you know, to be able to say, to be able to show it is one thing, but for him to, you know, to use a written word and just kind of depict everything around, you know, around them is something I can never do.
Yeah. I do appreciate the audiobook. It's tough to read all these thicker sections where he describes landscape and history and stuff. But if you're just listening to it and passively, I think it's more digestible.
Yeah, I do get a lot more of it. I like using it in the audiobook now. I think, like I said, more detail. Yeah.
So they encounter Mary. Mary brings them back to Crick Hollow.
Mariotic.
Brings them back to Crick Hollow. Crick Hollow is out of the way. It's kind of like almost like a summer home where the residents wanted to get away from the busyness.
From the bustling of
Brandy
the
Hall.
Shire. God, yeah. I was thinking that too. It's like, what, like how could it get more rural than, you know, than the rest of the Shire?
It can.
It does, yeah. I know. Yeah. So they get to Crick Hollow and
dinner. They want another dinner. He's like, "Are you hungry?" We've had dinner, but we'll have another.
Yeah, why not? I know the amount of preparation like Mary and like Fatty like, you know, put into it, and like the efficiency and then getting everything ready was insane.
Yes.
And it really, I think it's really, this chapter is emphasizes the most on, you know, developing, you know, Mariotic as a character. You know, it's and he like, you know, like it's like from the movies, you know, he's kind of like, again, he's like, you know, comedic. He's you know, he's someone you go to, you know, to have a laugh, but like the amount of preparation, the amount of like intelligence this guy has is like astounding, and you see it like right off the bat.
He takes himself seriously.
Yeah.
Unlike the films.
Right. Yeah.
He's a leader. You can see he's organizing things. There's a confidence about him. He doesn't back down. Peregrine basically just busts Frodo's chops.
Right.
But Mary is almost like an equal to him, and he just doesn't back to, like, he looks him in the eye and is.
I think beyond an equal in this one. I mean, he makes Frodo look like a fool, like in this one, because like you think you're so slick, but you know.
I had to laugh. When he like mocked him. He's like, "You think you're so clever, but we've heard you muttering, all melodramatic. Will I ever see this valley again? I wonder." Like Mary's like.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, of course I know what you're doing.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Oh God, but yeah, I mean, Peregrine, like, you know, he also, like, you know, he was just like, all right, if Frodo's not going to say what's going on, I'll speak up.
Yeah,
and just kind of fills in.
Cousin Frodo's been very close.
Yeah.
Well, you see them contrasted with Sam, who's so deferential.
And very quiet in this chapter.
Yes.
He whispers one thing about the rider, and then you don't hear anything again until 2/3 into the chapter.
Well, I think he's living in shame.
He is, because he's the conspirator.
Yeah. The chief investigator.
Yeah.
And then you see the self-deprecating critical voice when, after he got caught, he put himself on parole.
Yeah.
You hear the old gaffer's critical voice, you know, echoing through his head. Poor guy. So hard on himself.
Pardon me, sir.
Yeah. Begging your pardon.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lull, but I mean, there's a lot of development, you know. So
there's an important story involved.
Yeah.
So they get there. They want more mushrooms. The obsession with mushrooms.
Yeah.
Tolkien said something like, "They're more obsessed with mushrooms than humans are about anything." That's quite the statement.
Right. It's insane. I don't know. Was he saying that humans they're more obsessed with mushrooms than humans are obsessed with mushrooms?
Listen, no, more obsessed with mushrooms than humans are with anything.
That is a big statement.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I like mushrooms.
Yeah, I know, me too. But
Portobello guy.
You could do a portobello, a little shiitake sometime. You know, I like to branch out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. And you kind of see, you know, again, pertaining to hobbits, like these, you know, they've, where are they coming? I mean, I guess like last chapter, you know, talking about, you know, the path to mushrooms, and again, the story, the movie, always like altering my perception of what really happens in the books, you know.
Yeah.
Like, that, you know, it was just, it had nothing to do, this current scene had nothing to do with them, like, you know, stealing mushrooms, except they were given to him by,
right.
I forgot his name.
Farmer Maggot.
Yeah, Farmer Maggot's wife.
His wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, she baked it and put it in a basket for him privately.
But
see, their own little private joke between Farmer Maggot and the wife. She doesn't say much, but she's in on it. And that was cool.
Yeah.
And then they have the bath.
That's where I thought I would just like laugh at myself. It shows like how ridiculous like hobbits can be. They have bath songs. Bilbo's bath songs.
Yes.
And they chose one and sang it aloud.
Yeah, and I think too. I mean, just the innocence.
Yeah, right. They're like children.
They're like children, and I mean, they bathe all together. Obviously, they're naked together.
Yep.
It's not sexual.
Yep.
They're singing a song, and it's just innocence. I mean, you find evidence of this later on when they're naked rolling around in the grass after the Barrow Downs. There's an innocence to them that I think is often misconstrued by people.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they've grown up together too. You know, it's
cousins.
Yeah, and it is like, you know, sweet in a way. You know, it kind of there's no, like you said, like for me, like I didn't, it was no misconception. You know, like what they were writing about. It was just, you know, it's just three guys like happy to take a bath. You know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And the fact that Mary was like, look, we're not going to fight over a bath on the first night in Krakow. Let's get 3 baths going.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just funny to me to, you know, to picture that in my mind. You know, just
what a mess.
Yeah. And Pippin going crazy.
Yeah, it actually kind of reminds me of in The Hobbit when the dwarves are cleaning the dishes for some reason. They make a big soapy, sloppy mess. You know.
Yeah.
And then they sit down, they have the dialogue.
Yes.
And they talk about the conspiracy. I was validated when Mary talks about Farmer Maggot and how he's so shrewd. And a lot goes behind his eyes, behind his face. And he, a lot more than what he'll actually say out loud. I actually thought he said a decent amount in the last chapter to Frodo. I thought he made some intimations about picking up on little things going on between them. But what Marietta points out is that there's even more than that he doesn't even say. He's a shrewd fellow. Later on, you have other very important characters that we will not name yet. Honor him for who he is. He's like a real safe haven on the journey.
Yeah. He dissected everything that was happening up to that point.
Yes. And like very shrewdly.
Yeah, with extreme accuracy. He's like, and then, you know,
Frodo was like defensive of that in this chapter.
Yeah,
It's like it was only a guess.
Yeah.
Farmer Maggot doesn't know, but it was a good guess. Frodo has to acknowledge it was a pretty good guess.
And and then, you know, and then it goes on. Then out of nowhere, Mary just drops the ring. He just says, you know, the ring's involved, and just Frodo's again taken aback. He's like, I've known about the ring more than you, like longer than you have.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, to see how, and he's not bragging, you know, he's just saying, look, he's like, it's funny. It was interesting to me the way he, you know, he presented like this like information, you know, he was just like, he was trying to put Frodo at ease. He's like, look, he's like, I know you have this like difficult decision to make, and you're ripping yourself apart about it, but it's, you know, we're in much better company than you think you are.
Yeah, we're in it with you.
Yeah.
And we know the risk. Frodo tried to say, this is not like a Bilbo tale, there and back again. Yeah. I go from peril into peril, and I don't expect to come back.
Yeah.
I don't expect, essentially saying I expect to die.
Yeah.
And they say, we know, and we're terrified. He even said that. We're very scared. We're very fearful of this journey. But, you know, and then Frodo makes this comment about, I don't even know who I can trust anymore.
Right.
And it was quiet for a couple seconds as Mary's like, well, it depends on what you're going in for.
Yes.
You can trust us to keep your secret better than you do yourself. You can trust us to go with you to the bitter end. Wow, that's a big statement.
And a big commitment.
But they meant it all the way through.
Yeah.
And they followed through on that commitment. But you can't trust us to let you go on alone by yourself. It's like he's setting up like real boundaries and limitations around what the nature of their friendship is. You can trust me to love you, but you can't love me. You can't trust me to let you go suffer alone. It's pretty profound. And it's like the core essence of being a hobbit. I've talked about how hobbits are overrated, and I think as an entire race, they are.
I agree.
But these friends, I mean, the best of hobbits are pretty remarkable.
Right, and that's what they are. Yeah, they are the best. The best of all the hobbits. And I think I love how like Gildor's words come back into the chapter again too. Like that was like the defining moment where Frodo's like, okay, like I think you're right. I do need friends along on this journey. So
Sam calls him out.
Yeah.
On that point with Gildor, that's when Frodo says, "You're right, Sam. He did say that, but now I know that you weren't sleeping, even if you were pretending to.
I'll never.
I'll kick you next time."
So he's been collecting information for months, right?
Before he got caught by
Gandalf.
Yes.
Yeah, because they've been making preparations since the spring because Frodo's been acting all weird
ever since the party.
Right. Well, no, so if we could do a little chronological, Merry has known about the ring since weeks before the party.
No, way before the party. Years ago, he said he's known about it.
Yeah, but that was years ago. The party was years ago.
Well, we don't know. He saw Bilbo disappear.
Yeah, I think he said weeks before the party because the Sackville Bagginses were coming at him, and so that's why I had to re-listen to it because I was a little confused. So Merry has known about the ring since before. He said since before Bilbo left. That's what he said. Since before Bilbo left. So that's what it was.
And then he started watching Frodo as soon as Bilbo did.
He did spying on him. Yeah, like actually spying and reading Bilbo's book.
Well, Bilbo brought the book with him, so he read that book before Bilbo left. He was spying to read the book.
Right.
But he started really focusing and zeroing in on Frodo as soon as Bilbo left.
Yes.
And so I think we can assume that they were having conversations about being scared that he was going to follow Bilbo at any moment. Give them the slip, he said.
Right.
And then they started making, you're right though, probably they started making preparations as soon as Sam told them that Frodo was intending to leave.
I agree. I think so, yeah. So they were like, since he got called out by Gandalf, essentially.
Don't these people have jobs?
No, that's what I was thinking. That's what I think. We talked about it last time, I think. Like, it's just like, what do these guys do? What does Frodo do? My thing was, what does Frodo do?
Yeah.
He's just
I think this group of hobbits... Well, I think this is like the Hobbit aristocracy. These characters are all Hobbit aristocracy, with the exception of Sam.
Right,
That's why he calls him Master.
Master, yeah.
Yeah, in my last episode, I was speaking with young Elijah, and he was asking that question. Why does he call him Master?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's something about there's social classes within the Shire, but everyone's actually happy within their social class. There's not unrest. There's respect and dignity offered between Bilbo and the Gaffer, his gardener, and so everyone's kind of happy to be where they are.
And they are, yeah, and there's, you're right. There is no like resentment. Like they gossip about everybody and anybody. Yeah, so it doesn't matter like what level you are. You're gonna get taken down a peg by somebody at the old Green Dragon.
Ted Sandyman, the Miller. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. As far as this group, I think Sam's the only one that has a steady job,
a blue collar job. Yeah, I think he too is living off the treasure Bilbo brought back from the journey.
Yeah.
Remember, at some point, I don't know if this was just the film or later on, Gandalf says that the mithril shirt was worth more than the entirety of the Shire, and Bilbo hadn't even known it, and he just kind of gave it away to be put up in the old Smiles Museum. It was worth more than the entire Shire.
Yeah.
Wow. So the money that he brought back, the treasure he brought back, I mean, you could probably live several lifetimes on that, very comfortably.
And so, but then he sold it all. So what happened to the treasure? I know he sold Bag End, but the treasure is where? What?
It's a good question.
I don't know. Yeah. So I'm assuming. I don't know, because he's not expecting to come back. So
no,
who knows?
He did something with it. I'm sure he didn't leave it for the SBs.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. But yeah, so I mean, they're they're talking to discuss the ring, and then they're talking about preparations, like where are we gonna go next? What direction are we going? And I like that Merry said, we can't wait for Gandalf. That's a bad move.
Yeah, it was a bad move, and I think you're starting to really see how important Gandalf is. Because when you learn that Gildor was really surprised and concerned and worried that Gandalf hadn't shown up, like Gandalf doesn't break trust like that. There's like very few things that can hold him back from him keeping his word.
Right.
Very few things in all of Middle Earth. That says something.
Yeah.
And also he didn't want to meddle with Gandalf's plans too. He's like, well, if Gandalf didn't tell you about the Black Riders, which we know are Nazgul,
right?
I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna tamper with Gandalf's wisdom and Gandalf's interactions with you. So starting to see how important Gandalf is, and first time reading through this, you're just hoping he returns, and that also speaks back to The Hobbit when he disappeared for a while. This is the first time you see Gandalf leave, and you're hoping he comes back to save the day.
Right.
But they're on their own.
Yeah, and Merry knows it. He's like, we can't wait. Like, it's, if you're saying these Black Riders are across the river, like it's folly to just wait around.
Yeah, I was thinking too. They're talking about if the Black Riders come all the way across the Brandywine Bridge and then come north and try and come down into Buckland through the hedge gate.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, they could probably hold them off for a while. Just makes me laugh thinking about Nazgul being the most terrifying creatures on Earth, and some hobbits with hoes and pitchforks sitting on a bush, holding them back.
I don't think they'll hold rank. I don't know.
No, or there's more defense than we might imagine.
True.
But I always found that that'd be an interesting standoff between them.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a very. I don't think it'll be a very even fight. I don't know. I mean, you're right. I don't know. I've never seen the pitch gate, so I'm not sure.
That also reminds me of something else with Fredigar Bolger. Bolger. I don't know how to pronounce. He was so terrified of the Old Forest.
Yeah.
And it says something about how stories and narratives can build things up in your mind that he would rather face the Nazgul than go into the Old Forest, which Merry argues it's not as bad. It's bad.
Right.
I'm not saying it's not perilous.
But we have our own entrance.
We have our own secret entrance, and we go in there, and I go during the daytime. Not a big deal. But that, the fear that built up in Freddy's mind,
But they're all content with the choices they made, which is great. So, Peregrine's like, I don't want to stay here. There's no way out. I'd rather, risk it in the forest.
Yeah.
And Fatty's just like, look, you do what you got to do. I'd rather stay here and be a decoy for Frodo, which is a death wish, So, I mean, but he was happy with it. And he'd rather just, kind of, be the contact in the Shire.
I don't think he knew.
He did. No, he didn't know. But but
it's so interesting. Interesting for me to reflect on how all of the hobbits so far had no concept of how dangerous the Black Riders are. The way they talk about them, going all the way back to the Gaffer, who said, "Be gone!" It's none of your business where old Mr. Frodo is. Hit the road, to a Nazgul.
Yeah.
And then the next was Farmer Maggot, who's just like, be off with you. I'm not telling you where he is.
Yeah.
And then when he got off the wagon and he didn't know it was Merry yet, he steps forward like he's going
to challenge him.
Yeah, to challenge him, to confront him. And then you hear how Merry's talking about the Black Riders and the hobbits being maybe able to hold them back if they need to, and they wouldn't let them in. Maggot's wife called them strange customers. Maggot called him a strange customer. I mean, that's quite the understatement. And then his wife's like, don't go arguing with foreigners.
Right.
Foreigners.
Couldn't be any more foreign.
Foreigners. These are the Nazgul. So that, I mean, in their simplicity, it's kind of a way to protect themselves against fear.
A different plane of existence. That's how foreign they are.
Yes.
But
literally.
It's, I mean, I guess you're right. They don't know. Yeah, they don't know extent of how dangerous they are. Yeah, which is why they probably said if they go through the gate, they'll hold them for a little time. They don't know. They don't really know what they're dealing with.
No idea.
Yeah.
I love how this is one of those moments where I think the effects of the ring on Frodo have begun to create this sort of narcissistic self-centeredness where it's all about his task. He has to go off on his own. The ring was entrusted to me. it's almost like Sam was an afterthought, doesn't really care about him. And then he's just keeping the secret from his closest friends. It's very, I think that's the effect of the ring. And in this chapter, you see the love of the hobbits break through that self-centeredness.
Yeah.
And Frodo even said, if I wasn't so terrified, I might say that I'm happy and I'm joyful. And in fact, like I am happy. This is the happiest I've been for as long as I could remember. And like I almost want to break out into a song and dance. When we deal with our emotional lives, people think that there's some emotions that are good and others that aren't good. When the truth is, they're all neutral. They're all a response to what happens outside of us. Anger is the proper response to injustice, sadness to loss. Joy and happiness is a response to communion and connection with other people. And it's like that love was more powerful than this like corrosive self-centeredness that has started to affect Frodo.
Yeah. And yeah, it shows like, like going it alone is never really a good option. It's whether you're talking about, the ring of power or, just like something you're dealing with in like everyday life. Like if you go it alone, you're going to falter, it's going to be a lot harder.
But how often do we try and think that we have to handle life alone? We don't want to. Yeah, we don't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
We act as if the whole world revolves around us, our own little kingdoms that we create in our in our lives. We don't look across the fence to see someone else who could be an aid to us, but also that their world to them is just as important as our world is to us. We're all kind of masters of our own universes, whether that's in our practical life or interiorly. With Frodo, you're seeing it very interiorly, but he's not even looking outward anymore. Yeah, to me, it's a little scary when Frodo is so self-centered. And I think ultimately that is the greatest danger to him. Not that he starts to play around with the idea much later on to challenge Sauron, as if he could,
Yeah.
But you find the early rumblings of that, of the ring affecting him, and he's not connecting with other people, even his closest friends. Much, much later, for those of us who've seen the film, we know that even that ring and that self-centeredness gets between him and some of his closest friends. But I think it begins here. You start to hear, this is what I love about the book versus the film, is in the film, I think Jackson just makes Elijah Wood look kind of emo and,
the many painful faces of Frodo.
He just makes him melodramatic and exacerbates the emotion of it. But when you're reading the book, you get a sense of the inner workings of his mind.
Yeah, like the strife he's going through. Kind of. Yeah. I mean, I don't like. I feel like I have to review. Like, was that like self-centeredness there before? Before the ring came to him. I don't know because I remember like reading the first couple chapters. I'm like, he does have this like aristocracy to him a little bit, So I don't know. Is he just trying to protect his friends right now at this moment? Is he trying to I can't let anyone else go through this with me?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, going back, I remember even when he was talking to, I think when he was talking to Gandalf about the quest that he had to go on, and then he thought to himself, oh no, wait, I have to deal with, this is going to be harder than I thought. I'm going to have to deal with the consequences of my leaving and how that's going to impact other people. But it was an afterthought.
Yeah.
So, but that was when the ring was already in his possession. So I think it's tough to say. Actually, if I recall, there wasn't much talk about Frodo at all until he was in possession of the ring at the party. Before that, it was really all about Bilbo.
Right. Definitely.
So it's tough to tell, but I like to think, it would make sense logically to me that even though he can resist the ring, and Tolkien talks about how eventually it corrupts everyone. And so there's got to be some kind of impact. Even right from the beginning, when Bilbo came in possession of the ring, he lied, right?
Right.
So I think there's some early corruption going on.
And he's had the ring for years at this point.
Yes.
So you're probably right.
Yeah. What did you think about the dream at the end?
I was about to ask you that. I really wanted to ask you that. I wanted to know your opinion because I know it's foreshadowing, but I don't know what it's foreshadowing exactly. Is it foreshadowing? It's obviously an ocean. There's trees. There's two different kind of terrains. You have this kind of like almost haunted like forest, and then an ocean with a white tower.
Yeah. So I in my line of work, whenever we do any kind of dream interpretation, you have to be careful because you could be having a conversation with someone 1 minute and then you walk through a doorway and suddenly you're in Paris.
Right.
And that's because your executive functioning shuts down, but your emotionality is still operative. So that's why it may not make sense in the dream logically in terms of content, but it's true in terms of something you're experiencing emotionally in your life. So if you're running and you're like flying and then you can't fly and you fall to the ground, it's like, where is that showing up in my real life? So that kind of thing. And so my first run through of the dream was that his executive functioning was down in the dream. And so there was really 2 scenes. I think the first part where he's in a tower looking out of the window with creatures below, that's Orthanc. And I wonder if he's like seeing through the eyes of Gandalf, because later on he has other dreams of Gandalf up there. So I'm wondering if that's kind of like some real-time moment where he's participating in Gandalf's experience. And then you have him at the Grey Havens, ultimately.
Yeah.
Where the elves take the ship to Valinor.
Right.
And I mean, spoiler alert. I mean, eventually.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Eventually.
Ultimate spoiler.
Right. I mean, it's the movies have been out for 25 years. Yeah. So if this is literally your first time through, like stop the show and come back to it. But he ends up there.
Right.
He ends up taking the ship to Valinor at the Grey Havens, and he can't quite see it yet. He's been troubled in his dreams by the sea, but he's never seen the sea. He can smell it. He can hear the gulls, and he's feeling called home. There's a lot to unpack here,
There is, and then a storm. There's a bolt of lightning at the very end, too.
Which stops it from happening.
Right.
So the calling of the sea is very interesting. So the Valinor and the Valar are outside of space and time and calling him home in the moment of his dream. So it's not just a dream, because we know that what is in his dream is also present outside of his dream. I'm always interested in Tolkien does the littlest sprinkling of providence, the littlest subtle sprinkling of beyond the story, there's someone above the story orchestrating the story. And in Tolkien's mind, that's God. It's not a lot. It's very subtle, but it's not a closed universe in Tolkien's mind.
Right.
So it's so he's able to see into the future a little bit. He's being given always through dreams. It's always kind of vague and mystical, but this is the first evidence of that. What was your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the tower with like the creatures in the bottom, that's actually I had no idea. So I mean, that Orthanc theory is like, that makes a lot of sense. That's really cool.
But then he wasn't there anymore.
Right, and then it dissipated, and then it was at the ocean. Yeah, I mean, I had that same idea as like Grey Havens, like the Valinor. I was thinking that, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's tribulation with the end. There was I don't know, actually. I gotta tell you, because the amount of times we've read and seen the movies.
So many layers.
Yeah, I've seen. Well, and reading, listening to this dream, I couldn't place it.
I mean, from a non-faith perspective, you could argue that it was just coincidence.
Right.
None of those made any sense at all.
Right.
Like, he was never in a window looking down from Orthanc. That scene where he was like sort of climbing up to see the Grey Havens, that didn't happen. The bolt of lightning from the sky, that didn't happen. Like, to what level are we going to do dream interpretation and ascribe to it mystical realities? Or was it just a weird dream that didn't make sense?
I mean, I can't chalk it up to just being a weird dream. Like, why would Tolkien write that in? Just like, oh, by the way, Frodo had this strange dream. Like, it all means something, and it's just like, I'm just trying to place, what this means, So it's, I mean, obviously, there's the underlying threat, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that one.
Yeah. Well, the bolt of lightning and I mean, there's a real fear that he experiences there. There's a real fear which prevents him from seeing that thing that he has always longed for. The sea has always troubled his dreams, and he's climbing over the cliff. He's about to finally see it, and then boom, crack. And so, I mean, maybe in the fullest sense, if you take a step back from the whole story, like he's always called to go home, and this quest is the crack of lightning. Yeah. I think of the crack of doom, right?
Mm-hmm. I never realized that his parents had drowned too. When I started reading this time around, I mean, I feel like the water and like in his life and his dreams has to have this very traumatic, like understand this. It's traumatic for him, It's got to be. So yeah. I don't know. I mean, it was just brought up briefly in the beginning, but I forgot that or I never recalled that his parents drowned.
But he's from there. Mm-hmm. So he, as a child, did spend time on the water.
Yeah.
When they were crossing the Brandywine, Tolkien highlights that Sam looked back and was very uneasy, but nothing about Frodo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it may be. He was. What you're saying makes a lot of sense. There's probably some trauma associated with his parents dying in the water.
Yeah.
Maybe his father murdered his mother.
Right. Yeah. Or maybe we're just looking into it too much. But
yeah. Well, that's what the Miller said. Mm-hmm. The rumor was that his father pulled his mother in. Drogo. Yeah. Drogo Baggins. Yeah, I don't know. Cool dream. I think I want to pay attention to all the dreams as I go through this time in a different way and see if I can pull a thread through them.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Who won the chapter?
Meriadoc, for sure. I think I think it's a slam dunk, that one. I mean, he kind of, his preparation, his understanding of everything that's happening without being told.
You love the preparation part.
I love the preparation. Yeah, he was, because, he was been preparing for this for months, but also when, the journey began, he was like, all right, we got here yesterday, everything's ready to go.
We can leave within an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Horses are ready, whatever you need. And just his understanding of the entire situation without being told anything. He's like, I don't need to be told anything. I'm not an idiot. I know what's going on. Yeah. So I think he would just. I think this is the real first introduction of Meriadoc for me. And it's just like it just starts off with a bang. Like he's way more intelligent than than the movies lead on. Yeah. He's his preparedness. You can't argue with preparedness. And just like kind of. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that. Yeah,
he's one of a handful of characters that Jackson did dirty.
Yeah,
that were much stronger, much more centered with their own kind of confidence and competency that were present in the that's present in the book that was not present in the film.
And you see it a little bit in the films, like he does give them some understanding of lore in the movies. But yeah, it's I mean. I know in the books, like he's just his respect and reverence for histories and the world is incredible.
Yeah, so, maps and things. Yeah, my first time I do remember this. My first watching of the films, I just associated Merry and Pippin as one reality, like almost like twins, like these just two immature, comic relief type of characters. And the first time I watched the film. After watching the films more, you're right. There is a subtle difference between the two characters. And you realize that Merry's never really comic relief in the same way Pippin is.
Right.
I think Gimli is the comic relief for the most part in the films.
Yeah.
But you see Meriadoc have a seriousness about him, those leadership qualities. He reprimands Pippin, Peregrine, several times, and he's not the mischievous one. He kind of is part of the spirit of the quest.
He's the older brother in that duo. It's within the film. So yeah, I mean, but even Pippin too. I think Pippin got done dirty for sure. But in the realm of film, I get it. It's
I make it entertaining.
Yeah, you had to do what you had to do. So it's all good.
Yeah. I would agree. I think Merry won the chapter. I enjoy him. I enjoy who he becomes as a result of the quest, and you can see the breadcrumbs here for who he becomes later on. So for all our readers, pay attention to his character development and where he ends up.
Honorable mention to Fatty Bulger.
That's your best supporting actor?
That's all. Yeah, that's the best supporting. Absolutely.
I mean, for the amount of screen time he had, he really makes the best of it.
He really did. And I mean, unknowingly, he put himself in so much peril.
Yes, unknowingly.
Yeah, but he was willing to do. He was willing to be the the anchor that stays back in the Shire and takes care of business.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah. But yeah,
we've not heard the last of him.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to go with Frodo for best supporting actor. I think it was he really overcame himself and opened himself up to receive love and support. Mm-hmm. Where he started to get, like as I said, he started to go down that path of self-centeredness and belief that he had to solve everything on his own, and he didn't have to accept the helping hand of the other hobbits. Didn't have to, but he did. Mm-hmm. He chose to. He still has that wholesomeness about him, wholesome enough that he's open to receiving that aid. The transformation's already happening though. He's already becoming not a hobbit.
Yeah.
I remember when I first saw the film, more spoilers, well, like where the character ends up, I was sad about some of his choices later on. But now it's like, it makes total sense. Mm-hmm. It's so logical. We talk about him as a character being forever changed. It's already begun.
Yeah.
He's already kind of like the cream is rising, mm-hmm. From the liquid. What does cream rise from? The cream rises to the top.
I don't know.
But he's separating.
Yeah.
You see his character slightly separating mm-hmm. from the regular spirit of being a hobbit. Mm-hmm. And all throughout, you see him tethered to them, but them being like, he's like a kite. They're like reeling him in.
Yeah.
But he's just drifting.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one moment where he remembers who he is, and you see that hobbit-like nature
mm-hmm.
in him.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. What Tatty, Precious?
I know what I want. I don't know where I want it though.
Okay.
It's got to be the 3 tubs. But I just
that's a good one.
Yeah, I just don't know where. Yeah. Maybe a little one, like a 3-tub situation right here on the chest. I don't know. Yeah. But not with the hobbits in it, just the 3 tubs. I don't want naked hobbits, Abby.
Yeah, what if they cover with bubbles? Though?
Yeah, maybe a little bubble on the head.
Splashing.
Yeah.
You can tell who Pippin is because there's like more water flying
Absolutely,
everywhere.
it's hands up, yeah.
I think it might be cool if you see the 3 of them and then you see like the door cracked with like Pippin's head looking through. Excuse me, Merry's head. It's just like eye. All like annoyed because of the water all over the floor. All the steam rising up. That's a really good one.
Pub too.
I don't think I can. Yeah, I don't think I can top that. That's really good. That's really good. I didn't really have a good one for this.
That's a tough one. This is a tough chapter.
Yeah, maybe one of Fredegar Bulger with like a terrified look on his face with like a thought bubble of the old forest up top.
Dressed as Frodo.
Yeah. That left an impression of me. That and the riders coming through the hedge in the north with the little hobbits with pitchforks trying to keep up the
and someone's
Nazgul.
Just saying, hold.
Yeah. Any last thoughts on the chapter? What are you looking forward to?
No, I don't want to give the next chapter. They're going into the Old Forest. I mean, there's a lot about to happen. Very important character coming up on the horizon. So it's exciting,
Is he very important?
To me, he is.